Right. So I was just saying that over the last 3 months, the focus has been on family, and by the grace of God going forward, we will try and do that across other areas as well, business, uh, other things, and we would have every quarter a session for our teams that we can have ongoing investment in their development. I think we should be more outcome driven. And I was trying to say that oftentimes in most of our meeting places, particularly in church and similar environments, isn't that much drive towards outcome. Maybe that's why after several years of talking and talking and talking and investing, just try to imagine how many hours you've invested in a church environment in a year, and then ask what is the outcome of all that time investment. My suspicion is I don't think they quite measure in some very in meaningful ways. We can be thankful about all that time investment, which is good. It's a good attitude to have, but we need also to be, I will use the word business minded, that is outcome driven. If what we're doing does not have measurable outcomes, then we are wasting time and resources. That's where I put it. That, there's no need for sentiment. And this is why Jesus, I believe, said, the children of this world are wiser in their own generation than the children of light, because they are outcome driven. Look at the example he gave. This is just preamble. When he was talking about the man who was going to be sacked from his work, but he just thought, wait a minute, if I'm sacked, what's going to happen? Better line up with my next steps. So he went to people and he leveraged on his relationships, on his business connectivities, and said, listen, let's work out a deal that will make it easier for both of us. Now, you could say it was corrupt, if judging by today's standards, but Jesus did not say that. And I would rather go with Jesus' opinion on it. Jesus said, the master of that servant commended him. He said, because the children of this world are wiser in their own generation than the children of light. They are outcome driven. And for me, that has to be a focus for us. Whatever we do should have some measurable outcome. If the outcome is not what we desire, then we need to look at the input and the method. So, input, process, output. If the output is not desirable, then it's either the process needs changing or the input needs changing. But to keep on doing the same thing and expect a different result is not right. People use other words for it. I don't want to go into all those kind of words. But today we want to look at the courage to lead change. I thought about this long and hard for several weeks. I was trying to figure out what could the way to crystallize it, and then eventually this came to mind. But the point for me is that everything around us is changing all of the time. Change is the only permanent thing they say. It's always happened. You don't have to look for changes. They will happen. In fact, changes are happening around us now. Yours sincerely used to wear pump. Believe it or not. Now, when I wear cap, it's not because I want to wear cap, it's for practical reasons. I'll leave you to figure that one out. You know, we are always in seasons and times of change. Always. All of the time. Our children are changing right before our eyes. Changing. Even you are changing. Our parents are changing. They are older. Supposed to tell parents they are older now. They need a different kind of support than 20 years ago. So everything is changing. Seasons are changing all of the time. To go to technology and all those things. So wherever we look, change is always happening. Now, change can happen to one, and you just always on the receiving side of change, or you're part of those who are also influencing change. If I look at the design and the vision of God for man, God never designed man to be on that receiving end of change. As a matter of fact, God's a change driver on the earth has always been man. Let us make man in our image. That is, someone who thinks and functions like us. And I ask, before anything was created, before anything showed up, what did we have? And who initiated all of those changes? It was God. So God is a change driver. I'll put him that. I'll call him that with every respect. It drives change. It drives changes. Yeah. And he said, the man I want to make has or must have that same nature, that same essence, that way of thinking. So if you look at that just without drilling down too much on the surface, a passive attitude, what's that word I want to use? Being just a recipient of change isn't the nature we got from God. It's not. Let us make man in our image. And image means nature. It means character. Right? And I think everything we talk about, we can always circle around what God said fundamentally about man. Because that's the first thing I was said about us. Let us make man in that image. Everything else builds on that. So to me, we're always in seasons and times of change. But change is also a necessity. Imagine that the last time you cut your finger, you remember the pain you felt? Imagine that pain is a permanent pain. You're still feeling that pain up to now. Imagine the last headache, the last migraine. Imagine that was just a permanent migraine. And you're still feeling it up to now. Imagine the last back pain, the sprain on the ankle. The last time you had stiff neck. Imagine that was just a permanent pain. So God designed change as a course correcting factor. Again, there are times when you're so happy, but if God just allowed that to happen perpetually, just go into hysteria and it just becomes like I don't know. But change, God allows change as a way to bring about equilibrium to maintain balance. So change is a necessity. Now, we can, as I was alluding to earlier, we can be watching change happen, or we can initiate change. But I suggest that by the virtue of God's design of us, we belong to that latter camp where we have something to say about changes that happen, at least in our own affairs. At least as a minimum. Now, regardless of what we think about that, I like to say that someone somewhere around us is always initiating change. Even if we choose to do nothing and initiate no change, just be sure that because you are not, does not mean someone else isn't. And the one who is initiating change is doing something a little bit more than that, is shaping our reality. Remember when the kind of phone we knew wasn't like this, wasn't this flat. Remember that phone we used to have, that rotary phone? Someone somewhere said we can do something different. And almost everyone on this table have something this flat in their pocket or in their hand. You didn't make it, you didn't change, you didn't create this, but you are affected by it, you are using it. It's literally, if you forget your phone at home when you go to work, it's as if you are in a mini crisis. Because someone has made it so important to you, but you have no say in it. That's what I'm saying, that someone somewhere is always driving change.
It's like when you left your phone at home.
Yeah.
And when somebody's just calling you, nobody just picks up the phone.
Exactly. And you wonder.
You just go to work and just come back and you knew that your phone was at home.
Exactly. You probably want to drive back home to pick the phone because it's become that important. Whereas in the past, your phone will stay at home permanently, and I wouldn't be any problem about that. When you come back home, that's when people will call you. But it's not like that. Now, the point for me though is our experiences, particularly past experiences, and the attitudes of our mind, our perspective. That's why I like the prayer you prayed that time. That prayer about how we see determines how we define change. We can see change and be scared and say this is crisis, and go into a shell, into a reservation mode, or we can see change and think fantastic opportunities here. For example, you're sharing something about in that sector. Let me not go into full disclosure, but someone can look at that and say, that's daunting. I don't have the capacity for that. What's going to take? It's going to take so much time. And person becomes intimidated. I said, no, I'm not touching that. But someone can say, wait a minute, this is what I've been waiting for. And you know what? We will give whatever it takes. We figure it out. It's the same thing that makes someone to look at failing, what you call failing, and think, oh God, everything is collapsing. Someone think, well, we just okay, well, we'll go through that. It's always another day. Experiences, whether childhood experiences, whether experiences we had through our teen age, or experiences to date of pain, and to define how we look at change. The book you mentioned last time, well, you're glad that I've gone over it.
Oh, good. Money.
Yes, Psychology of Money. See, I suggest you read that book, not because you like money. That book is not about money.
It's not about.
The book is about how your experiences shape how you see things. As a matter of fact, it's just saying, as a man is in his heart, so is he. That's really all that book is saying. But that is true nonetheless. That the experience we've had, the time that we grew up in, the conditions under which we grew up, they shape how we see things up until now. And you know what still? Those things can become strongholds in the mind negatively. Strongholds are not always bad. If the stronghold is a positive one, then good. But if it's a negative stronghold that is preventing forward movement, positive action, then it's a stronghold that ought to be broken down somehow, some way. So, to you, is change crisis or is change opportunity? That's one question I wanted to ask. I don't want an answer just yet, just something to think about. I heard that the best way to predict the future is to. But that is not something we're trying to believe or trying to do. That's exactly our heritage. This is my point. If something is already yours, if you are already something by design, you don't need to strive to make it happen. It's like saying, right, let's work on you becoming a male. You're already male. So my point is, this change agency is our default state. God made it so. And if God made it so, I think the difference between potential and reality is awareness. How much am I aware of what I already am? If I increase my awareness of what I already have, I can profit with it. If I'm unaware of what I have, I'm as good as not having it. And that really is the point. That look, it means that we really have been designed to have a say in how things turn out, whether at personal level or family level or the spheres. I like these people, these sons of Isaac that the Bible talks about. And I just extracted that verse. He was talking about them. If you look at the background of this Isaac, the first time their forefathers spoke about them, I'm talking about Jacob, it wasn't such a pleasant thing he said. It was like, you are children of some of the concubine. It didn't really have much for them. In fact, you were told there are people who kind of bear the burden, and they saw that the place was a place to rest, and they bent down, and then it went under servitude. So if you compare that to what the experience later became, you find that their past experience somehow along the way got redefined. And that's one thing I want to kind of put on the table. That look, regardless of what our past experience have been, because we have been designed to be change agents, we can redefine it. That my forefathers were so poor working the farm in my hometown does not mean that has to be my future. Does not have to be my future. Somehow, these Isaac guys changed the story. They changed the narrative about themselves. So look at what it's talking about them. Of the tribe of Isaac, we say Issachar, men who understood the times. And I can almost understand that, underline that. Understanding the times. Listen, if we do not get into the mode of understanding times, and this is not something we need to try to do, we already have the nature. I'm not saying we should do something that's alien to us. We already have it. But they understood the times. I will say something, the difference between times and seasons. A season, it's like a general period of time where certain things are possible, but it's up to you when you take the action within that season. But when you talk about time, there is more specific element to it. That's why we use the word like point in time. Seasons are more general, time is more specific. So they understood the times. You could say they understood the seasons. Because when you say times, that's a little more expansive. But look at the next thing. With knowledge of what Israel should do. This is the key. through our seasons and the times of our lives, knowing, discerning that time. This is the season of my life. With the knowledge, not just of what they should do. They were like the eyes and the ears for the entire nation. Whenever we think about Israel, please think nation. Let's not get into this religious mode where anytime the words like Israel or Zion is used, people just take church. Please, I will encourage us to get out of that mode, because that is such a limited way to think about scripture. Everything is not about church, please. As a matter of fact, everything is about the nation first and government. Because by the time you think, one time, we had the spiritual Israel, those I don't know where those words come from, but that I just don't like those words at all. Because what it does is it automatically puts you in a religious mode, and your vision of that word becomes narrowed. It's like saying, when I say green now, green is just a color, but if I say green, your mind is already thinking sustainability and those things, because it has been narrowed down to a particular meaning. Right? So, let me not go to the other ones. But when a word has been co-opted and given just one meaning, rather than looking at it for what it is. So, anyway, my point here is, because they understood the times, they had knowledge. They think about it. Knowledge workers are the most important people you could have in organizations, because they are the ones who help you to find all of the relevant data that you can use to make informed decisions. They knew what Israel should do. And look at the aftermath of it. 200 chiefs, all their relatives were at their command. How would you not have command or be in control, be in charge, if you have this vital asset? Knowing the times and then knowing what to do. See, one of the biggest things that most people are looking for, all of us, is just knowing what to do. That's why scripture said, and that a soul be without knowledge, it is not good. None of us want to be in a place where we just don't know what to do. It's a state of confusion. You just become, if in a sense, handicapped. See how disempowering that sounds. Say, what to do. I already look vulnerable. I already look weak. But I say, that one. It sounds like you're poised for action, for control, and that's why this guy became an asset to the nation. Well, I like the way Ephesians also talks about it. It says, therefore, do not be vague. See, this vagueness, it's almost like a default state of inaction. Vagueness is nothing is defined. It's when you say, so what do you do? We're not sure, but we'll do something. It's not God. Look, God, the only science and omniscient. My dad convinced us last weekend that God is actually not just omniscience or omniscience. And I agree with him. That is all of knowledge. If science is knowledge, then omni is all of knowledge. And I think I agree with him. He's very academic in the way he does his thing. So, be not vague. Vagueness is not an asset. If I'm trying to disguise my intention and I choose to be vague, that's fine. You can say that's strategy. But in affairs of life and driving change, vagueness is not an asset. In business, vagueness is not an asset. Or is it? For business people around here, when you say, well, you want to try and create a training room, and you are vague about it, you don't know dimensions you want, you don't have any capacity you want, you just say you just want a training room. How useless is that? Can that be? Right. Look at the next one. Therefore, do not be thoughtless. What does it mean to be thoughtless?
Having no thoughts, no thought, have no thoughts.
Exactly. What do you think? What do you think? Not planning? Yes. Thoughtless. It just anything that comes. Do you know that oftentimes people who like to control your time, they prefer you to be thoughtless. Because then they can shape your thought and give you a thought to think. For me to control your time, I need you to be thoughtless, to be in a thoughtless state. So when we were growing up, my dad had this favorite question. We say, Kule, what are you doing? In Yoruba. If you say, I'm not doing anything, I just got into trouble. If you say, you cannot not be doing anything. You're either just sitting down or sleeping or thinking, but there's nothing like, I'm not doing anything. So you can imagine the kind of house I grew up in. So, anyway, and do not be thoughtless and foolish. Well, I would say someone who's vain and thoughtless will automatically be foolish. No doubt about that. So, but understanding, like this guy's Isaac guys, but understanding and firmly grasping. That sounds like no knowledge, no way. Firmly grasping what the will of the Lord is. Can I suggest that the will of the Lord is not so hidden? Really?
That's absolutely.
It's not his idea, it's not his interest, it's not a delight to God to hide, to just make us not know and wondering we look weak. No. As a matter of fact, it's already expressed. I said, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, and my ways are not your ways. That is not a statement of pride. It's a statement of regret. I keep saying. Meaning, I expect my thought to be your thought. I expect my ways to be your way, but sadly it is not so. So I'm not happy about it. So he said, and that is so built that knowledge, it is not good. That's God talking. So God is not, bragging and say, you don't know my thoughts. My thought are so high. You are so low. No, it's not bragging on us.
That's it. Yeah.
He's saying, I don't know what has happened to you. My thoughts used to be your thoughts. My ways used to be your ways. What has happened to you? Let's just go back to the beginning. The beginning is always a point of reference. Adam, the first man knew God's thought. God trusted him everything. He just thought and did whatever God wanted to do. Jesus also, second, at the last Adam and the new man, also made us see that. He said, I always do what my Father does. I think what he thinks. My Father just thinks to me. In fact, God doesn't even want to talk to you, to be honest with you. He wants to think. He wants to think to us. Because the last time God tried to speak to people, they ran away. So it's not really keen on talking to us because his voice is very big, you see. His voice is like the sound of many waters. So if Bible says the voice of his voice thundereth. So he really doesn't want to talk to us. Imagine you say, God, speak to us. Well, you don't want God to speak to you. You want God to think to you. To be one with the thought.
I think some more things. Yeah. That to me was here to make all this question. I didn't bring my part.
Yes.
But I don't want us to gloss over it too fast because the truth is, and the Lord said to me, and He said that to most Christians, and I found that to be true. They're expecting them to have a kind of deep, not spiritual now, but spectacular encounter. But oftentimes, even those men of God, what they probably meant was maybe they were reading a book. Yeah, I came to them. But I found that most Christians from our background, they believe what the man of God meant was something spectacular happened. But God speaks to us in mundane things.
Yeah.
So sometimes, so it's just good to be able to decompose this so that people don't go away thinking, oh, I'm waiting for that voice of God. I'm reading my Bible. Sometimes it could be when people are, you could just see this fruit shoot and an idea comes. And then by the time you now hear me say, oh, but in the program one day the Lord said to me, shoot. It's the Lord that said it to me, but it was through what I was. So just because what you said is so powerful, and I've just listened to a podcast on that for a while, the whole of 2 weeks ago. So I just thought to
No, absolutely. And that's appropriate.
that is so important.
Yeah, you're right. And I tell you what, I tend to think a bit about leadership ideas and all that. And as I was on the street of Lagos, and I was just I was just thinking what's on the mind of the people. So I'm seeing them. People are just random in bus stops and all that. And I was thinking, all my curriculum of leadership does not apply to people in this circumstance. I have to redefine it. Honestly, it was an illumination to me. God spoke to me, apparently.
Yes.
But I didn't hear thunders and clouds. No. God speaks to us. He wants to think to us. He wants his thought. Think about it like a radio wave. If we all have radios, individual, and we tune to Talk FM right now, we're going to be hearing the same thing said, the same thing at the same time. God, and sometimes God also speaks to us through everyday things, with children. Sometimes you tell me, come upstairs to sleep, and I will not obey. I'll stay there and I'll waste 1 hour. And then after I finish wasting 1 hour, go to listen to your wife. Sometimes that's the whole revelation you need. Yeah. Sometimes you don't need to open the eviction, just listen to your wife, period. That is your salvation, that's what I do. Yeah. Alright. But understanding and firmly grasping what the will of the Lord is. The will. What's will? Will is not something, it's something that comes that's in the mind, isn't it? The will is something in the mind. You can now see it expressed in action, you can see it expressed in speech, but first is in the heart, it's in the mind. Right. This is just really just to suggest that we have to discern change. Let's us in our own affairs, knowing what's going on here. And I used to say something when I was said, well, become self-documented. Write things about yourself. So you know what I would do that time? I used to be going overboard. From the time I wake up to go to bed, I would literally write everything I do every hour. And I would do that all year long. So if you ask me, what did you do? So what do you think? I can give you what that way. If I will rethink everything I said in that day, just to kind of play back. It was part of the things we learned that time when you're trying to be efficient. And it's good.
That's what people sell. So sometimes in the West, people sell that for millions. Yeah, they do it. I think their life catalog and most of them sell it for 50 million, 70 million. They're not only documentary. Just that thing you've been writing down.
I'll tell you how it impacts. When I was doing my MBA, I just know where there are 168 hours in a week, and every 1 hour of that 168 hours was totally planned. So at any point in time, I know what I'm doing. So I don't want you to come to tell me to do something. I just didn't like you telling me to what to do because I've already planned my 168 hours. So if you say we have this meeting, well, it's not on my 168 hours. And honestly, it was very easy for me to say no. I just said no, sorry. Someone said, come and become so and so. I won't say what I want to say. But they gave me what should I be an opposite? Come and become the assistant. No, because I didn't even think. I said it no before I thought about it. Because I already have one state our plan. The MBA was my priority at that time and other things. And your agenda is not on it. Sometimes one can go into a board. Good idea.
So I just wanted to more or less like reemphasize just what you said now. But it was since Cleo mentioned it, it was ringing in my head. when that scripture that we just read, where when you asked about thoughtless, and then he looked, he maybe hesitated, and then he was like, "Not have a plan." When you talked about thoughtlessness,
Yes.
and that is important. You know, with every little thing that you do, you know, even with kids and us, even as adults, having a plan for everything, more or less like your daily thing. You're waking up, you're going to school. It applies to everybody in terms of. So I was thinking about that word thoughtless, and when you asked the question, what it meant, and it says, "Don't be fake or thoughtless." And in the midst of thoughtlessness, it's actually difficult for you to know what the plan of God is, because in the midst of you drawing out that plan for your day, you can actually hear His whispers in writing out your own plan of the day. And just like Ayo said as well, He speaks to us in different ways, and we can't be totally fixed that He speaks to me only in this way. We're going to learn it in that light. For instance, I've had people that have told me that He speaks to me in dreams, and it's only in dreams. And I've actually said, be careful, because you could actually miss it. Because there are so many ways that He speaks to us. He speaks to us in the little things, things that don't even make sense, or seemingly not making sense. And I want to be able to hear Him in the little things. I want to see Him in the little things. I want to see, because if I see Him in those little things, it's easier for me to be able to recognize how He's showing me this in the little things. And even then, in the big things, it's still part of the plan. As you're making plans, you're hearing, and more or less like training your heart be able to hear Him in everything. So we can't afford to be vague or thoughtless in anything.
You see, somebody who already said that, well, when God has to speak to you in your dream, it's because you are not listening when you are awake. You know, it's actually very funny to me, but I think it's also true. If I couldn't get your attention when you're sleeping, let me sedate you put you to sleep, and then at least that's how you can argue with me. I'll just be talking. It's like, you know, when you operate people, you know, doctors will know that. If you want to do an operation whilst they're away, there'll be trouble. So what do? You put them to sleep. So just sleep, you. Let's get our work done. Anyway, so it's vital. As a matter of fact, someone who has a plan will likely, now a plan is not guaranteed for success, but will likely have better outcome than someone who is powerful. Because power without a plan leads to dissipation. You're going to waste your energy. You're going to waste. In fact, the rich, if he manages to become rich without a plan, we waste his resources eventually. All right. So the point then is, the question is, how do we see leading change? I mean, we can chime in here. To me, I was just saying the picture. I wanted to grab an appropriate game, I couldn't find it. But I was just thinking of a sailor. You know the way captains are at sea. The essential tools of captains, sailors in particular, are the rudder. I'm talking about the things that they have that they can control, seemingly control. The rudder of the ship. Now the ship is a very, very big. I mean, I've seen some big ship, and you know this is. And you wonder how come this tiny rudder drives this whole thing. But the thing that the captain has are not very many. In fact, you probably think these are insignificant considering the size of the ship and the size of the sea. Well, it's got a rudder, it's got the sails at times. The sails to, and each of these things have what they do. I'm going to go into this in a while. The anchor, the compass, the map, the crew, as people on board the ship, is experience and courage. I will just quickly give you a hint and I'll let anyone else talk if you wish to. The rudder, that's for direction. You see the ship is so huge and it's just this, oftentimes they're not more than this size. They just keep on. And that small thing is changing direction of this huge. It seems like sometimes like 2 fields.
Yeah, or more than that.
I mean, or it's like a mini city.
Yeah.
The last time I went to the cruise, and I looked overboard and I saw to my right to the left. I thought, God, please save us. Because what I said is black. I mean, like brackish color. And you're thinking, we better be okay on this place. But it's just a tiny river.
Wow.
Driving that whole thing. Think about it.
Yeah.
The sail, some of the smaller boats, they just have a sail. And what do they do? For direction. So and they depend on the wind. See? The sail, they constantly change it depending on how they wish to go. They would change it to go. Sometimes it can be northwest, we need to go northwest, and they will change the sail accordingly. The anchor, when you need to stop, when you need to restrict movement. And all of these things relate to change. I'm just giving hints. I'm talking generally speaking. The compass, again, for direction. The map for direction. Most of the things you need that the sailor uses are predominant for direction. Is to have knowledge, to have understanding and knowledge on the sea. Because the sea is think about it, that there is more, that we have more water in the world than there is land. So it's even harder to navigate the sea. And I wonder sometimes, how do these people know the pathways on the sea? But obviously they've mapped this thing. That's where a map comes in. They've mapped the whole thing. To get from Manchester to New York, this is the route you have to take. And they take that route with all of the waves. Now, all of these things, I'm not referring to the size of this ocean, the waves, the adverse weather, because the sailor is not in control of all of those things. What I'm trying to say is this: you don't need to always look to be in control of everything to lead a chain, to go where you need to go. Oftentimes, you are not in control of most things. We are not in control. In fact, we are not in control of everything in reality. But yet, we make a plan. You don't wonder, so why do you make a plan if you are not in control of anything? No, you want to at least take care of the side of the story. That's why we make a plan. And God respects them. You say, no, write the vision. Make it plain. Now, your vision does not, has no, it's not saying the economy is not going to crash. But it says, still write your vision. Make it plain so that at least you are not confused. God, that's why it says, for a soul to be without knowledge, it is not good. That is, God does not want his children to be in a state where they're just confused, they don't know what to do. You sort out your environment. Don't worry about the other ones. The problem is that we try to worry about everything else. Things that, frankly speaking, are none of our business. I mean, what? Look, no matter what the sailor does, the sea volume will not reduce. The waves will still blow hard at the ship. But God did not tell him to worry about those ones. If he goes out and says, hey, I'm on this big water, he's going to be distracted. That is not his business. The crew, because we need a team. Look, one cannot multiply. No matter what God told you to do, you will not be able to do it alone. It will make sure but God will not allow you to do it alone. If you try to do it alone, you'll be frustrated. Until you learn to value the people, it's the team that makes the dream work. You will never succeed alone. Just end the story there. Say amen, don't say amen, doesn't matter. God will not let you succeed alone. So that's why the Bible said that it is not good that a man should be alone. He already decided that a long time ago. In fact, it says, woe to him as alone when he falls. and he has no one to help him out. We are not designed to be alone. Means all in one. This is somebody is many people in one, and you think that is something to be prideful about. No, it is. In fact, it's a foolish idea to want to be many in one person. Like a self-contained, self-sufficient person. God does not like it. He himself does not even do it. Come, let us make man our image. Let us go and see what's happening on the earth. Us. So if God does not do that, where did we get the idea from? Whenever we see God, we are really just seeing our nature. God's actions are man's strategies. Experience. This is important because I'm not saying sometimes you can look at experience and say dismiss it. No, experience are useful.
All right, Pastor, before you move on to it, do you think I could just think about
Please
back of that prayer thing? There's a lot to say, I think, for each of those components. But I think with the crew, so I read something recently. An ex-Nigerian president, Jonathan, is media aide, Reno Omokri. Reno wrote something. I don't know if you know Reno Omokri, this pastor was quite vocal on social media space. He wrote something, and Reno said, what himself knew was what got him into prison, but who he knew was what took him out of the prison, meaning his relationships. So he said, whatever you do, make sure you have relationship, this and that. And most people who have a bit of a common sense, they know that is true. And then this guy, who I think was a pastor, jumps on it and he said, no, it's the Lord Almighty that you should depend on. Relationship, and he quoted few scriptures, the arm of men will fail. And I read the comment and I felt,
Go and educate yourself.
Stop
embarrassing us.
When I read that, I felt so bad for him. And I saw a lot of other people who were very similar to him and said, no, God alone.
And it starts telling stories how God alone helped them.
And I felt, what the guy was trying to say is understand how the world works. But there's something you said firstly, which is one does not multiply. And no matter what you do, God will. I think God wants to have that title of El Shaddai too. So the exclusivity of I'm the only one that can do that. Because something happened to me. I was praying for growth in our business a while ago. And the Lord showed me a scripture. He said, but the Lord has not sent rain on the earth, but there was no man to till the earth. And he told me something. There's man on the ground. I won't send them the growth we're asking for. So what do we need to do? He told me about start having systems, processing. So we started having more seniors. We started having a wellness lead. We started having how many leads again? I don't remember. We started just expanding the base. And every time we expand it, God will feel it. Every time we expand it, So anytime people think, what I just read in that comment, I just said, let me just share. When that guy thought and he said, just God, depend on, and some of our religious background, the fallacy has also been spread around our world, which is you don't need anybody. If anybody thinks that way, I just wanted to employ the name of the Lord. It's not the right way.
We did not learn that from God. For sure. That's not from God. He didn't teach us that way. And wherever that came from, needs to be sent back there. We cannot function alone. As a matter of fact, okay, let me even talk about God. Since we are talking about God being omniscient and omnipotent. Okay. Potence. Let me take the lesson by that. Right. Think about this. God said, I have seen the suffering of the children of Israel, and I have come down to save them. What should we do? He now said, therefore you go. so wait a minute, God. I thought you said you are ready to save us. Is that therefore Moses go? But God, go ahead and do it yourself. No, it doesn't. As far as it is he will always require exchange agents. It's human agents, period. Let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over all the earth. I just put dot 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 the earth. Meaning earth requires man. Okay. The fullness of time has come to send you. Okay, I'm sending. I need a body. Mary, please, can we do business together? Or else your womb. Let's just use your womb to create somebody. This is almighty. Why don't you just send Jesus from the heavens and just let him just drop down? Just say, this one is from heaven. We all respect him. No, Mary, we like him. You're good. You are a good young girl. Please, can we borrow your womb? That's what it did. And he said, okay. Cheapishly. And he didn't go to a 30-year-old woman because I would have a lot of experience and said, no.
Brother God.
No. He went to a very young girl, maybe like 16, maybe. And he said, okay. So, the father, even God in his own project.
I've been praying for this for many years. You're not showing more. Say that you want, I know. I will not take it.
Exactly. This man that I've been, you know how to spoil our wedding day. No, I'm not taking it. And experience. I was saying, we don't have all the time to delve into this, but see, let me tell you sometimes why I don't feel an obligation to go on and on this things, even though I do. I found out that the job of somebody who teaches is not to give all the answer. It's to stimulate interest so that whoever is listening can then go and research. So I'm content just kind of sprinkle the seed. Experience is not a bad thing. And it's not necessarily good. Context is what makes a difference. Is it relevant experience? Is it useful experience? And every experience need not be your own. That's why we read books. I'm so glad to see Theo reading this book. I started paying this girl to start reading books because I'm not doing that. I have to pay for business. So, you're also reading a book, fantastic. Look, let's make all our children read books. Look, let's not even try to debate that. Let them read books. Don't say anything like that. In this community, our children must read. Are we in agreement? Say that. And amen. Okay. So experience. We can borrow other people's experience. So if somebody has failed before, I better learn about how he failed so that I don't have to do the same thing. So that's where we borrow. Anyway. And then of course courage. Oh, courage. Courage. We can spend all day there. And really that's the heart of what we're talking about, the change. Courage is not the absence of fear. You are still not sure. It's not, in fact, courage is not the presence of certainty. I'm still not quite sure. I don't have all the answers. But this is a worthy venture. It needs to be done. Courage does not mean I also like it. See? I may not even like what I want to do. But it needs to be done. Let me put it this way. Our lives are in seasons. There is nothing permanent. If there is pain now, as God designed it, that pain will pass. So we can, even if there is something I'm not so interested in, but I need to do it, it is not a permanent address. That's why I can't be so hung up on, I don't like this, I don't do this, no. One of the biggest attributes of leading change is flexibility. The rigid will get broken.
In that book, that's about flexibility. Just what I mentioned it for those who might be interested. Talk about flexibility and change. So that's what the whole thing. It said changes always happen in finance. But those who are prepared, who are flexible enough, when the change comes, are the ones who will be able to maximize it. Some people will be like, and it was encouraging people to save, to have a habit of saving, so that when the opportunity or the change comes, you are flexible enough with your time, with your resources, as opposed to when the opportunity comes, you're like, what do I now do this? So something you should have been doing earlier. So that flexibility, that courage thing you just said, I just talked to my people about.
Think about it. If you're a business owner, something needs to be done. If an opportunity just came up, and who do you want to work in your office? Someone who says, no, I already have this plan, I can't come. Who says, okay, I don't have this, but let's make adjustment. Who would you rather work with? It's the one that can make adjustment. That's the adaptable. As a matter of fact, the word meekness has a lot more to do with flexibility and adaptability than anything else. Meekness is valuable. If I'm honest with you, in my first job in the UK, one of the things that endeared me to them was said, you're very adaptable. And so when anything then came up, the CEO remember and say, let's have Kuni on the team as well. He didn't know me from anywhere. You could say, oh, this is where I'm arrested there, But because of that openness, I had to pay some cost for it, because it means sometimes things are not really, but just okay, let's do it. That endeared me so much to them. There was no time they did bonus in a particular way that I would not do it. I just like being around it.
Anyway, the Bible says good understanding giveth favor. I hope our young people listen to what we are learning this morning. And the truth is, no one believes in racism. I've always said to young people not to believe in racism, because it's a social construct.
Yeah.
By people who are not wiser than you. So why should I believe in what another man created?
Yeah.
The reason I don't believe in racism is the more I've kind of grown in my career, when I was actively a pharmacist and in the field and all that stuff, the more I realized at that level what people want is result. Period. And anything that's able to help them towards getting their result, so they go add you on board. They don't even. That's what they go for. I'm sure, Pastor, you probably had some jobs you didn't have to interview, or maybe just recommendation. Like you said, come on board, come and join this team, come on. And that's what our young people should learn. And I hope you please listen, guys. What is important is to always be a value-adding person. And that's what allows us to be able to build anything. But you've seen around the world people who are leading us now. From the Suella, I have changed your name to an African name, Suella. Forgive me for saying it in a certain way. So her name is probably pronounced differently. But from Suella to Sinachi to this one, they're not better than. When I look at the way they think and they betray by the way they talk, you'll be like, king. The way you guys are saying this thing, if I'm also there, I will do better. But you're not there.
You're not there.
But there's a reason why you're not there.
Because and that's the key thing. You see, what those times, as I was thinking about those things, characteristic to the way I kind of figure things out. I try to brood over. I then wrote, value is colorless. I was just going on a train that time. I'm just thinking it in the way I'm walking to a train. Value is colorless.
I think that's powerful. I think that's the word to be framed, because another thing that's colorless and ubiquitous is water. The same way water is colorless, but it's colorless. If you need water, you'll get water. You need
oxygen is colorless.
Oxygen is colorless.
It doesn't matter what I came from. You need oxygen.
Most things people need in the world are really pertinent to successful living. People don't care about color. No, forget about all this. I've seen people, around, so to say, and even I was privileged to talk to a businessman in Nigeria 2 weeks ago through one of my sisters, who was trying to be the ambassador here in the UK. In case you want to look him up, it's called Bashmore Homes. The guy is one of those big people. And I was talking to him, trying to look for what he can do here to be able to help my sister get some percentage on the business model and all that stuff. And the guy was saying, I don't really have anything to do in the UK there. Not really interested, this and that. But my point, I don't want to divert because it's not about me, it's about that person. But the way the guy spoke, he knows his stuff. He's a Muslim guy, but he knows his stuff. He knows about value. We're talking about this and that and this. And he was saying, he said, see, people, I have minimum on my phone that can influence 20 senators. Okay. That if you guys can help them to get because it's 10, I'll say it here. So if you can help them to get most things for visa thing. Okay. If people can help them to get a kind of opportunity, then you'll be able to help them. You'll be able to help this other person. What that showed me is this opportunity will come, but if you are a valuable person, that's how you would also position yourself to take advantage of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I will try to move on. All right. So, just to talk very briefly about leadership. This is one of my favorite statements. Leadership is intrinsic to man. We are not trying to be leaders. Leadership is your nature. It's a nature thing. If something is a nature thing, then it's not something you're trying to do. It's about then cultivating it. Let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion. The word dominion is the same word for government, governance, administration, leadership, control, all of those words. Same word. Same word. Just synonyms of the same word. So that's why I say the one that made us in the beginning already said leadership is part of your assignment. Why are you then shying away from it? Don't say I'm not the leader. It is not a wise statement. It's an embarrassing. Let me put it this way. It's an embarrassing statement to make. Please don't ever make that statement again. I'm not the one leader. It's an embarrassment to say that kind of statement. Please don't say it again. My younger friends, don't think like that. It's embarrassing for you to think like that. Leadership is your property, it's your characteristic. And leadership does not mean you have a position. It just means that you are designed by God to make earth better, to make earth the way God wants to do it. So it's your nature. Any other way of thinking is not right. I'm deliberately saying that so that we need this to sink in properly. That's why I also reference Genesis chapter 1:26. You know that this was the first thing that was said about man, the very first thing. God has not changed. However, to lead is not just titular, it's not positional, it's a verb, it's an action word. I cannot lead and stand still. I cannot lead and keep everything exactly the same. The word lead, by its very nature, implies change. If I say, please lead us to the kitchen, we can't stay in the room. You have to find our way to the kitchen. You cannot lead me to the kitchen and stay in the room. No. God is committed to leading the responsive. Look at these beautiful words. One of my favorite scriptures. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. There's a way you should go. That may not be the way everyone else needs to go, but the way you should go. But it says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way. Meaning, what do you know what that means? Unless you get in the way, there are things you will not see anymore. You must get in the way to keep getting the instruction, to keep getting the teaching. It has to be in the way. You cannot stay outside of the way and expect to get the instruction and teaching. I don't know if I'm making sense. See, if you are going from here to where now? Etihad Stadium. There are things you will see on that course, on that pathway, which you will not see if you are driving towards Manchester United. If I say, make the next turn to the left on your way to Etihad Stadium, it's different from make your left turn to the left on your way to Manchester. The pathway are different. So in the way, whilst you are in the way, more instructions, more teachings will be given. But if you do not take a step to get in the way, you will not get the instruction that will be given to you in the way. This is my point. If you are in the employment, there are things that will happen in the employment by way of training, meetings, whilst in the employment. The people on the outside will not know. They will not see. They will not see the opportunities. This is my point. That's important. If I'm in a family, there are things that are contextual in the family that I will know, that I will see, that I will experience by being in it. It doesn't happen outside of it. This is the key to the scripture. I will teach you, I will instruct you in the way. I want to do a study on just phrases in the scriptures. In simple phrases. In, on, by. So those are, for me, those are the most powerful words. Because they change the whole dynamics of other things. And if you don't pay attention to those things, you can totally miscarry the information that's been conveyed. It is in the way. And you should go. Now, I will counsel you. You know that one of his names is Wonderful Counselor. And he wants to lavish that wonderful counseling on me. I tell you what, how much do people pay for advisory in businesses? I tell you what, people pay a lot. So if you go to all of these big companies, they have what they call the advisory board. And they bring somebody who's very good to, and guess what they get paid by the hour? Sometimes £10,000.
I used to think, I've never encountered it before in my life. I didn't know how much they charge until I was looking into executive training. And somebody, I won't mention the person's name, who does it, not around me, but someone I know. And so book your 2 sessions with this person, this and that. And it was charging close to the amount you said.
Yeah. I know it firsthand. People charge 50,000 per hour on advisory. Advisory per hour.
This is in the public domain. So there's a gentleman called Samuel Leeds. This is in the public domain anyway. Who writes books, and he said he was privileged to speak to the Alan Sugar. To be able to book an evening with Alan Sugar, I'm not sure the exact amount, but I think it
may be well 20K.
Between 20 and 50. I'm not sure the exact amount.
Some of them are
to just sit down with him for an evening. He had to pay Alan Sugar's team about 50K for the opportunity. And I was like, what exactly? Yes. But he said in his book, he said the only thing he looked at his book, said what you're doing is you're making too much you're declaring too much profit. That was the only advice he gave him, but it opened his eyes into the world of possibility.
That's what people pay for. And we wondering, I can just get out, I can just go and pray and get out. Sorry, you won't get on your prayer. I'll tell you the truth, you will not get it.
You would not.
I can guarantee you will not get it. Even when God is saying to you, you won't hear it because your mind is not constructed to get it. Yeah. It's not that God doesn't give us a place.
It does.
But your mind has not been trained to receive it. So even when God is saying it, you won't hear it. Even when God is showing you, you won't see it. That's why Jesus said, blessed are your eyes for the see, and your ears to hear. For prophets. See, I don't look at that word as a religious word. For many prophets and great men wanted to see what you're saying, but they are not. But they do not. For you, it's been given to you to know. Secret of the truth. Now, tell you what, that is a very powerful statement. Anyway, say, I will counsel you, and it is the wonderful counsel of God you're having. I will counsel you with my loving eyes on you. Look at the difference. Oh my God. I will counsel you, but with my loving eyes on you. I am looking at your best interest. I'm not looking to profit from you. So when I give you the counsel, trust that it's the best thing for you. This point is so crucial. If the whites refuse to lead, they will be led by fools. And it is not just a statement, it is happening. When the wise relinquish leadership responsibilities, they are automatically being led by fools. And they will lead you where you don't want to go. You will have to deal with consequences you don't want to deal with. All because we're not agreeing with God that we have made mankind our image, and it is to them to have dominion. Your leadership, or the lack of it, is creating a future for you and your offspring. Oh my. I'm just kind of, each of these we can spend an hour talking about each of them. But your leadership or the lack of it is creating a future right now for you and your offspring.